What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Raspberries and blackberries are some of my favorite garden treats. So today, I want to share with you a tip that'll give you healthier plants, bigger harvests. Let's go! Raspberries and blackberries grow quite easily and typically vigorously, but getting good harvest depends upon proper pruning techniques. Not all raspberries and blackberries grow the same. That's what we're going to go over today. Everbearing raspberries, like this variety next to me, Yellow Ann, are unique, and they are because you can actually choose when you're going to get the fruit. So you can either choose if you're going to have one big fall harvest or if you're going to have a spring and a fall harvest. The way to do this is if you just want the fall harvest, what you'll do at the end of the season is cut all these raspberries down to ground level. What that'll do is it'll give you next year 1-year-old canes, which will be prima-canes. On those 1-year-old canes, they will fruit just at the top in the fall. If you don't cut them down in the fall and you allow them to stay as they are, then next season you'll have a spring harvest. So basically, that's why they're called everbearing. You can have the spring and the fall one. But if you just want the fall one, cut it all the way to the ground. If you want the fall and the spring one, then you're going to allow those to stay and overwinter as tall plants. The second year they'll fruit on the sides, the first year they'll fruit on the top. Next up, we've got black raspberries, which grow and fruit differently than our everbearing raspberries. So the proper pruning techniques is how you're going to get good fruit in these, which are going to be a little different than our everbearers. Let me show you how we do it right here. Back when we were talking about the everbearing raspberries, I mentioned the word prima-canes, and those are the canes that shoot up the first year. So right here, we've got a prima-cane. This is the first year that it's come up. Right next to me here, we've got a floricane. The floricane are going to be the second year canes. So when it comes to Blackcap raspberries, the only fruit that you're going to get are going to be on these floricanes. As you'll notice here, not only are they on the floricanes, but they're on all the lateral branches. So when it comes to Blackcap raspberries, what we want to do is when these prima-canes get to about 2 to 4 feet, we want to come and just prune them down. What that's going to do is encourage more lateral growth where all the fruit is going to be. So that's important. And then we'll wait next year, come next spring or next early summer, we're going to get a lot of fruit on all these, on this floricane coming off all the side branches. After this floricane from the year that it's fruiting is finished, we'll cut that all the way down to the ground because it'll die, it'll never fruit again. But we don't want it to let it sit and bring any disease or anything like that after it's finished fruiting. Two things you may have noticed when I was just cutting that black raspberry down, the prima-cane. One thing is I have gloves on. So whenever you're working with raspberries, especially these black raspberries, they're very pointy, they're very spiky. Make sure you get these gloves on because it's not fun getting pricked in your bare hands. The other thing is how I cut this black raspberry. I cut that at a 45-degree angle. This way when it rains, it sheds off that extra water. So to kind of go over what I said regarding black raspberries, they only fruit on second year canes and you want to encourage the fruiting. So you want to come out in the summer and prune those down about 2 to 4 feet at a 45-degree angle. That'll give you bigger harvests. Later in the fall, you might want to thin some of these raspberries. As you can see, it's getting a little thick here, but we also need to note that a lot of these ones that are fruiting this year, these are all going to be taken out because they're not going to fruit again next year. So you don't want overcrowding. You want to make sure you have a good amount of plants, but you also want to allow some airflow and some light to reach all those plants down there. One of the reasons that I love being out here in the garden is because I learned so much, not just about gardening, but even about life in general. And one of the things that's taught me a lot has to do with pruning, because pruning is one of those things in the garden that's kind of counterintuitive. You're cutting away things. You think you're actually going to be like damaging or harming the plant or taking away from your harvest by doing that, but actually you're encouraging healthier growth. You're encouraging bigger fruiting, and it's actually going to help overall bring in more light, bring in more airflow. But again, it doesn't make sense. I think that's kind of the same thing in life. Oftentimes, you can see things in your life that are drawing energy away from you, that aren't producing good fruit. You could prune those limbs off, and it actually helps to encourage that energy towards things that are going to actually produce good fruit, that are going to be good for you in the long run. So I think it's one of those things that just takes a little bit of time to actually exercise it, maybe a little bit of faith to take the chance. But if you go out there this year, you prune your raspberries, maybe you prune some of your trees in the winter that need to be pruned, the next year you'll come out, you'll see the actual growth that's gone on, you'll see the bigger fruit and the harvests that are coming in, and that can help switch your perspective. It can start to settle in that sometimes taking away can actually be adding in the long run. So I think that's something important that we all need to learn when we're out in the garden. And again, I think that we can apply that to our lives as well. If you guys are enjoying the video, hit the subscribe button. If you want to contribute to the channel, if you love what we're doing out here, being out in the garden, check out some of the merchandise, some of the shirts we've got. We even got some coffee mugs. You can come out in the morning, walk through the garden, garden, have a food forest mug, and just enjoy yourself like me and Tuck like to do out here. Just try to take in every moment and just have fun doing it. And I want to thank all of you for just coming along, for being a part of the channel, and for helping this all to grow, not only as a garden, but as people as well. The next type of raspberries we're going to talk about pruning are the summer-bearing raspberries. I actually don't have any of those growing, but fortunately they're one of the easiest raspberries to prune, so we'll talk about those just a little bit. When it comes to summer-bearing raspberries, they're only going to fruit on 2-year-old canes called floricanes. After these fruit and produce, you're going to want to cut them down to ground level. They'll never fruit again. So the 1-year-old canes, the prima canes, they're not going to have any fruit on them. You're only going to get fruit on those 2nd-year canes, but by removing those 2nd-year canes after they fruit, you're going to open up a lot more light and airflow for those new 1-year-old canes that the previous year will fruit for you. The last berry we're going to be talking about today are blackberries. And this one right here is a semi-erect blackberry, and it doesn't have any thorns on it, which is nice and convenient. As you can see, it's absolutely loaded with fruit here. So the reason it's so loaded is because the way we pruned it. As you'll notice right here, at about 2 to 4 feet, I pruned this off at the top when it was a 1-year-old cane. Now that it's a floricane on its 2nd year, it's got a lot of fruit on it. You'll notice the majority of the fruit is on these lateral branches. So what we'll do is when we have a new plant like here, a prima cane coming up, after it starts to get relatively tall, and this is a semi-erect blackberry, what we're going to do is I'm going to grab my pruner, we're going to cut it to about 2 to 4 feet here. That's going to encourage all this lateral growth, which is going to allow it to be nice and strong. It's not going to really topple over as much, but it's also going to force all that growth to those laterals, producing a lot of fruit like we have here. So these are a little later from ripening than some of our raspberries and stuff, but when you have a lot of different varieties in, when you've got blackberries, when you've got everbearing raspberries, when you've got summer raspberries, when you've got blackcap raspberries, purple raspberries, what that's going to do is make you have an extended harvest going basically all the season, so you're always eating fresh berries. Let me grab those pruners and just show you how we do it. So when it comes to growing these blackberries, like I said, this one is a thornless one, which I love growing because you don't really have to use gloves. It's nicer harvesting it. We're going to prune this thing at a 45-degree angle at about 3 or 4 feet. What that's going to do is that's going to encourage these lateral branches where we're going to get a lot of the fruit. That's also going to strengthen this main prima cane right here, which is important, so when it does have fruit, it's able to hold it. Then later in the season, maybe come fall, winter, we could cut back some of these lateral branches to about, I don't know, maybe a foot, 2 feet. This way they're not hanging over too far. So for one of the plants over here, it's got a lot of fruit on it, as you'll notice, but I left it a little long, which is okay if you're trellising it up along a fence here, but ideally it would have probably been a good idea to cut this back, say to about somewhere up here in the winter. This way it would have been about, say, 2 feet, maybe a little longer, and it would have really strengthened the plant and it wouldn't be hanging down as much. But that's okay because we got a lot of fruit on this one and we're using this fence along here to help support this plant and just keep it upright, keep it off the ground so it's not getting any diseases or anything. While I was pruning, Tuck actually went and found his own carrot, dug it up, one of these white carrots that I'm growing this year. So he likes to go for the more rare varieties. He just loves snacking on his own carrots. But I wanted to show you right here. Right here we've got a blackberry that's shooting up a sucker. So the blackberry plant is right over there. This shot up a sucker from all the way over to here. So if you want, you could rip this out if you don't want in the section. We're gonna leave it because we like when our blackberries expand, especially when they're thornless ones. We're not worried about getting scraped by them or anything. And once this thing gets a little taller, say in maybe 3 to 4 feet, I'll prune this down. But since it's on its only first year as a prima cane, you can allow them to just kind of trail along the ground like that. It's next year, once they start producing the fruit, is when you're gonna want to make sure they're kind of upright if they're not going to do it on their own, because you want to keep that fruit off the ground. Even though we have wood chips down here, and that'll help prevent some of the diseases and stuff, if it's laying on the ground, it's still ideal to have your plant up. It's going to get more light, more airflow, and it's going to increase your chances of getting the harvest. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it, and I hope you're more confident to get out there to do some pruning of your own to get the bigger harvests. So as you can see, I've got some pruning to do here. I don't want these black raspberries to be any higher than 2 to 4 feet. I want to make sure I'm coming out here while they're not too old, so I'm not wasting all that energy and growth. But I also want to make sure that I'm enjoying some of the harvest that we're getting right now. Grab some of these delicious black raspberries. These actually tend to be my favorite variety, so I like to grab a nice little handful of them, pop them in my mouth, and make sure, you know, get a real taste of summer. A little tartness, so sweet, so good. Like nothing else when you can come out here, harvest it yourself. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button. Check Check out the merchandise down low if you want to contribute to the channel. And if you want to be part of Team Grow, grab your Food Forest shirt. We'll catch you back real soon. Me and Tuck with another one. James Prigioni, Tuck, we